If you keep accepting less, less is exactly what life will keep handing you. The moment you raise your standard, your life will never look the same again. Before a single brick is laid in a house, before the foundation is poured or the walls are raised, there is a blueprint, a quiet, intentional design that determines what will stand and how long it will last. Your life is no different. Your standards are that blueprint. They are not wishes or whims. They are the lines you draw in the sand, the silent contracts you make with the world, with people, with yourself. They shape the decisions you make, the people you allow close, the situations you choose to entertain, and the energy you let stay. When your standards are high, your outcomes shift, not by luck, not by accident, but by the law of alignment. You cannot live an extraordinary life if you keep tolerating ordinary behavior. You cannot build a temple with the materials of a shack. If your standards are rooted in your worth, then your life begins to reflect that worth. The people around you begin to mirror your inner value, or they begin to fall away. And though the falling may feel like loss, it is really refinement. It is life saying, you no longer live here, you've moved higher. But when your standards are low, your life responds in kind. You accept love that breaks you. You stay in jobs that starve you. You call chaos normal and toxicity just the way it is. You get entangled in cycles that do not nourish you because somewhere you've told life this is all you expect, and life is obedient. It brings you what you consistently allow. Not because you're unworthy, but because you've unknowingly trained the world to believe that you're willing to live beneath your birthright. Your standards determine your yes and your no. They are the quiet governors of your calendar, your energy, your joy. When they are strong, you don't entertain everything that calls your name. You don't follow every feeling. You don't chase approval. You become precise, deliberate. You move from intention, not impulse. You step back from what once seduced you because now you understand that attraction without alignment is a trap dressed in charm. And the beauty of standards is that they are yours. You are the architect. You set them, you raise them, you change them when you grow. As you heal, as you learn, as you evolve, so should your standards. They are not meant to keep you rigid. They are meant to keep you sacred. They are not prisons, they are protection. They filter the noise, they block the drain, they preserve the spirit that once gave too much to too many with too little in return. When you begin to uphold your standards, not out of spite, but out of reverence for your own peace, your entire life begins to shift. You start to walk with the awareness that you are no longer available for anything that diminishes your light or disturbs your spirit. You begin to feel the power in your no, the peace in your boundaries, the quiet strength in turning away from what you once begged to stay. You stop bending, contorting, compromising for things that are not rooted in truth or love or respect. And you start building a life that stands not on sand, but on stone. You begin to live by design, not default, by integrity, not urgency, by inner knowing, not outer pressure. Your standards are the unseen script that directs your destiny. And once you rewrite that script, the story that follows cannot help but change. When you set your standards low, you don't just open the door, you swing it wide for energies that drain, for people who disrespect, and for environments that dishonor your becoming. You become a host for the kind of vibration that thrives on your silence, feeds on your confusion, and celebrates your shrinking. Because low standards are not just about what you accept from others, they reflect what you believe about yourself. A soul that forgets its value will start bargaining with its peace just to feel wanted. It will mistake attention for love, noise for meaning, and crumbs for meals. It will stay too long in places it's outgrown, not because it enjoys the pain, but because it has begun to call that pain familiar. Low standards don't just happen, they are taught, they are inherited, they are practiced, And over time, they harden into habit. They become the silent permission slips you hand out every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you stay when you should leave, every time you excuse what continues to break you. And the vibrations, they come in quietly, masked in charm, cloaked in urgency, coated in just enough sweetness to keep you questioning your worth. Low vibrations are not always loud or obvious. Sometimes they wear the face of a lover who only loves the broken parts of you. Sometimes they look like friendships built on gossip instead of growth. Sometimes they sound like the inner critic that tells you to sit down when your soul is begging you to stand up. Energy moves where permission is granted. If your standard is that you must always be available, expect to be used. If your standard is that you must always be liked, expect to be manipulated. If your standard is to tolerate anything in the name of keeping peace, expect chaos to dress itself up as kindness and walk freely through the rooms of your life. Because life does not reward desperation, it reflects it. And every time you lower your bar, you train the world to respond to your lesser self, not your highest one. But what happens when you begin to raise your standards? You disrupt the pattern. You create a new frequency, one where respect is required, not requested, one where peace is protected, not priced, one where love must be rooted in truth, not performance. And in doing so, the vibrations that once clung to your old self find no place to land. They are repelled, not by hostility, but by your clarity. Not by force, but by your refusal to dim your light to fit inside their shadows. Low standards are often mistaken for humility, but there is nothing humble about accepting what harms you. There is nothing holy about calling dysfunction a lesson if you never choose to graduate. There is nothing brave about enduring what you have the power to change. When you begin to understand that your life is the echo of what you allow, you stop blaming the noise and start adjusting the dial. You stop waiting to be rescued and start rescuing yourself from cycles that kept you hidden, unheard, and unsettled. To raise your standard is to declare, without shouting, without pleading, that you are no longer willing to live in environments that conflict with your elevation. It is not a demand on others, it is a demand on your own awareness. It is a reclaiming, a returning, a remembering that your spirit was never meant to swim in shallow waters, never meant to sit in rooms where your name is only spoken when you are absent, never meant to shrink just to survive what you were born to outgrow. When your standards rise, your vibration follows. And when your vibration rises, the very landscape of your life begins to shift. The noise falls away. The wrong doors close. The right ones appear. And you begin, slowly but surely, to live in alignment with the version of yourself that no longer negotiates with anything that diminishes the divine within. There comes a moment in every life where the mirror stops reflecting just the outer frame and begins to whisper of the inner one. That frame, your soul's foundation, your sacred outline, is drawn by the standards you choose to live by. You see, self-respect isn't built in the spotlight. It's not sculpted in applause or praise. It begins in the quiet, often lonely decisions you make about how you allow yourself to be treated, how you speak to yourself, and how you show up when no one is watching. Your standards are not about being rigid, they are about being rooted. And you can't plant yourself in chaos and expect to bloom in peace. Every time you lower your standard to make someone else comfortable, a piece of your self-respect erodes. It might not scream, it may only whisper, but it whispers loud enough to disturb your rest, your spirit, your confidence. Because deep down, you always know when you've compromised your truth for temporary belonging. Self-respect is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is reverence for your own spirit. It is the understanding that you are worthy of boundaries, worthy of rest, worthy of love that does not come with conditions, worthy of conversations that don't belittle, worthy of being in spaces that nourish, not drain. When you set your standards in alignment with this knowing, your self-respect begins to rise like morning light, quiet, steady, undeniable. But many are taught that to have standards is to be difficult, that to say this is not for me is to be selfish, and so they shrink. They accept what comes. They convince themselves it's better than being alone. But there is a sacred strength in solitude that teaches you what you deserve without the noise of compromise. That stillness will show you what your spirit craves, not just to survive, but to thrive. You begin to notice the shift the moment you say no more. No more to relationships that make you question your worth. No more to jobs that demand your soul but pay in stress. No more to friends who clap when you're low but fall silent when you rise. That's when the foundation of self-respect is fortified, not with fanfare, but with quiet resolve, not in response to others, but in recognition of your own value. To have standards is to say, I will not trade my peace for proximity. I will not bend so far that I forget the shape of my own spine. I will not stay silent when my soul is screaming to be seen. This is not about being better than anyone else. It's about not being lesser than yourself. It's about saying, I honor who I am becoming too much to allow what I've outgrown to dictate my direction. The world may call it too much. They may say you've changed, and you have, because self-respect will always elevate you. It will move you away from the shallow, the loud, the reckless, the unrooted. It will place you among those who don't just see your worth, but match it. It will draw to you experiences that confirm what you've finally begun to believe, that the divine did not create you to be tolerated, tested, or tamed. You were created to stand firm, soft, sacred, and to live a life that reflects the beauty of the standards you finally had the courage to set. The world around you listens more carefully than you think. Not to your words, but to your walk. Not to your wants, but to your will. And when you begin to raise your standards, the atmosphere itself begins to take notice. It bends, it shifts, it adjusts, because energy follows conviction, and the standard you set becomes the silent architect of your reality. When you choose to raise the bar, not for others, but for yourself, you send a clear message to the people, places, and patterns in your life. I will no longer build comfort in chaos. I will no longer trade my sanity for familiarity. I will no longer accommodate what dishonors the quiet brilliance of who I am becoming. And the moment you make that choice, your environment will either begin to stretch to meet that new elevation, or it will resist, crumble, and collapse under the weight of your becoming. You must understand that your surroundings are reflections, not accidents. They mirror your tolerances. If you tolerate disorder, expect confusion. If you entertain disrespect, expect betrayal. If you excuse mediocrity, expect stagnation. But the moment you elevate your standard, even by a degree, you invite everything around you to either grow with you or get left behind. Growth doesn't ask for permission. It demands alignment. And the higher your standard, the more refined your circle becomes. The more sacred your time becomes. The more intentional your presence becomes. Some people will feel uncomfortable when you raise your standard, not because you've done anything to harm them, but because your decision not to settle confronts their comfort in settling. Your standard becomes a mirror to those who are still making excuses. It becomes a light that exposes where others have chosen dimness. But you cannot shrink to protect someone else's denial. You cannot lower your frequency to preserve their illusion. You are not here to make others feel safe in their stagnation. You are here to walk with grace, with power, and with an unwavering truth that says, the standard I set is not just for now, it is for where I'm going. You are not just choosing friends or careers or routines. You are choosing the vibration that will either sustain your growth or sabotage it. A high standard repels confusion. It eliminates unnecessary drama. It clarifies who can stay and who must go, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with clarity. And clarity is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Your environment is not passive, it is reactive. It reads your energy and responds accordingly. If your standard is peace, then chaos has no place to land. If your standard is purpose, then distraction begins to lose its grip. If your standard is truth, then manipulation finds no shelter. But if your standard is blurred, your environment will be built on contradiction. You will find yourself in cycles that don't end, in relationships that don't grow, in patterns that repeat under new names. And so, to change your life, you don't need to chase anything. You simply need to decide. Decide what you will no longer allow. Decide what you will no longer apologize for. Decide what level of excellence, integrity, and authenticity you are committed to living. Then watch as your environment, one moment, one choice, one day at a time, either meets you there or removes itself altogether. Boundaries are not walls to keep others out. They are doors that open only to the deserving. They are the sacred language you speak when you decide to honor the worth within you. When you raise your standards, you must also raise your ability to protect them. And that protection comes in the form of boundaries, not made of bitterness, but built with wisdom, not fueled by fear, but grounded in self-respect. A boundary is your soul's way of saying, this is where I end and the world begins. It is a declaration that your time is valuable, your peace is precious, and your energy is not for sale to every wandering hand or passing mood. Without boundaries, even the highest standard will fall under the weight of constant compromise. Because you can have clarity in your mind, but if you do not have the courage to enforce it with your actions, the world will test you daily, deeply, and without mercy. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, and boundaries are how you educate the world about the level of access they have to you. If you do not define your lines, others will draw them for you, often with careless hands and selfish intentions. Boundaries do not need to be loud. They do not need to be cruel. They simply need to be consistent. A calm no can echo louder than 1,000 desperate yeses. A silent exit can speak volumes where words would only muddy the truth. You see, a high standard without a strong boundary is like a castle without a gate. It looks beautiful, but anything can walk in. And when everything is allowed in, the sacred is soon trampled under the ordinary. Boundaries are how you preserve your sanctity. They are how you maintain the integrity of the life you are building. They are how you separate the sincere from the opportunistic, the nourishing from the draining, the aligned from the merely available. Too many are afraid of setting boundaries because they fear they will lose people. But the truth is, the people you lose when you raise your standard were never rooted in your truth to begin with. They were clinging to your convenience, not your character. A boundary simply reveals what was already there. It peels back the illusion and lets the real stand in full view. If someone walks away when you protect your peace, they were never meant to be near it. To speak in boundaries is to speak in clarity. It is to say, this is what I allow and this is what I release. It is to trust that your worth does not need negotiation, that your time does not require explanation, that your love, your wisdom, your effort are not resources to be extracted by those unwilling to match them. Boundaries are not punishments, they are protections. They guard the space where your future is being nurtured. They protect the soil where your growth is trying to bloom. They create the stillness where your intuition can finally breathe. And as your standards rise, your boundaries must rise with them, because the higher you climb, the more valuable your presence becomes. And anything valuable must be guarded, not out of fear, but out of reverence, out of deep love for the woman or man you are becoming. Boundaries are the armor of that love, not to shut the world out, but to make sure only what is meant for you is allowed in. Desire is easy, wanting is common. The world is filled with voices crying out for more love, more peace, more success, more purpose. But the universe does not answer to want alone. It answers to the silent authority of requirement. What you truly attract is not what you casually wish for, but what your life, your habits, your standards, your spirit declare as non-negotiable. You don't attract what you want because wants can be fleeting. Wants can be whispered from a place of insecurity or longing. But requirements are born from clarity, from conviction, from a soul that has learned to speak in the language of worthiness. Requirements are not dreams scribbled in journals. They are laws carved into the foundation of who you are becoming. And the moment you begin to live as if something is required, not hoped for, not begged for, but required, everything around you starts to align or fall away. A woman who requires respect moves differently. She doesn't chase apologies because she doesn't stay where respect isn't the native tongue. A man who requires purpose stops entertaining distractions because his spirit no longer tolerates the weight of wasted time. When something is required, it shows in your walk, in your tone, in the silence you keep, in the doors you close, and in the ones you refuse to open again. The universe listens most closely to the decisions you make in the dark, to the nights when you choose discipline over delay, to the mornings when you rise with resolve instead of resentment, to the boundaries you keep when no one's watching. Those are the declarations that become the blueprint of what you draw into your life, because when you live like you mean it, life rises to meet that energy. Want is passive. Requirement is powerful. Want says, I hope this happens. Requirement says, this is who I am, and this is what I walk with. When you operate from requirement, you stop pleading for people to treat you right. You surround yourself only with those who already know how. You stop wishing for opportunities. You prepare for them. You stop begging for peace. You become a sanctuary so sacred, chaos no longer fits through the door. People will ask why you're so selective, why your circle is smaller, why you're not easily moved anymore, and you won't need to explain, because when you require more, you begin to speak a language that only the aligned can hear. Those who don't understand will fall back. Those who do will rise up. Because you've made it known by how you live, how you love, and how you let go, that what enters your life must match the frequency of your healing, not the memory of your wounds. It's not about pretending, it's not about performance. It's about becoming the embodiment of the very thing you once hoped someone else would bring you. You become the peace, and peace finds you. You become the love, and love recognizes you. You become the standard, and the world responds to it without being asked. That's how requirement works. It sends out a signal so clear, so bold, so rooted that anything unworthy of it cannot even find a place to land.